We begin with the final report from a provincial inquiry that has implications across the country. Nova Scotia has been examining a murder-suicide from 7 years ago. On January the 3rd of 2017, Afghanistan war veteran Lionel Desmond killed his wife, his 10-year-old daughter, and his mother before taking his own life. Desmond suffered from severe post-traumatic stress disorder and major depression. And in its just-released report, the inquiry sought to explain what happened and recommend ways to possibly prevent it from happening again.
At the end of the day, it is impossible to say with certainty that had these recommendations been in place when Corporal Desmond left the military, no suicide or homicides would have occurred. But we can say that we could possibly have helped avert the tragic events of January the 3rd, 2017.
The report was released at a courthouse in Port Hawkesbury, and that's where we find the CBC's Brett Ruskin. So, Brett, thank you for joining us. I know that there are a lot of recommendations here, 25 in total, hoping that you can highlight some of the key items for us in this report.
Whether it's interactions between provinces and sharing of documents, to intimate partner violence and some different procedures and protocols, to policing strategies, to even how firearm licenses are obtained, renewed, reviewed. It's interesting to see how this judge and the authors and the folks who worked on this report really have to walk a fine line, because this is a provincial report, but some of the matter and the subjects and the jurisdictions that it dives into is federal. And so some of the recommendations are, we recommend that the province speaks to or encourages or liaises with the federal government to make changes on that national level. So, for example, changes to the criminal code or changes to the ways that federal agencies share information with provinces or with provincial officials in charge of reviewing and sharing and basically checking the box to allow people to have those firearms licenses. So kind of the first recommendation, number one, is perhaps the most important, and that deals with the transition that military veterans go through when they leave military service. In this case, again, leaving because of a medical discharge, to go to that from the military healthcare service to that provincial healthcare service. So as you can hear behind me as well, middle of the courthouse, the courtroom here, there were some interviews that took place just outside the courtroom where the judge spoke, just behind me there. So again, this report very fresh and people still going through it, Hillary.
Brett, all of this, of course, happened 7 years ago now. Can you remind us about Lionel Desmond's story and what kind of supports he was getting in the lead up to this terrible event?
Sure, yeah. So Lionel Desmond, corporal with Canadian Armed Forces Army, he had 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan in 2007, came back, was diagnosed from, he posted on his social media pages as well as getting medical professionals to say he has been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. He was getting support from military officials, from Veterans Affairs, and then again that transition happened to the provincial healthcare system, and he had difficulty and delays getting his medical records from the military and federal agencies like Veterans Affairs to provincial counterparts, to the provincial healthcare system. So even just that simple aspect of that continuity of care aspect was not there, kind of creating the first crack perhaps in the system for him to fall through. Now we know that on January 3rd, 2017, he purchased a semi-automatic rifle and killed his wife, mother, and daughter at their home before turning the gun on himself. We know that this inquiry has lasted from January 2020, went on for a few weeks, then was delayed, put on hiatus for 11 months due to the pandemic. There was also a delay because the province had removed the initial judge, the original judge presiding over this inquiry, to then a new judge because the delays were too long in that original kind of overseeing position. So the report is now out. We're starting to get representation. We're starting to get a kind of reaction to it, and we'll likely hear from the federal side of things as well as the provincial side of things for their reaction in the coming hours. Hillary.
Okay, Brett, thank you for this. The CBC's Brett Ruskin for us in Port Hawkesbury, Nova Scotia.